Hello, welcome to Agile World. Hello, Sabrina. And who are you today? A Queen of Hearts or the Queen of all Hearts?
Remember, Lady
Oh
Bruce.
dear.
Lady Bruce.
Sorry about that, everyone.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. And we have a guest today. It's Evelyn. Hello, Evelyn. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. How are you both?
Great, thank you. And I actually know Evelyn from working with a previous client, but I won't name names.
No.
But it was a very, for me, a very long engagement. For you, I believe you managed to find the tunnel, get through it, and run like crazy.
Yeah. So I was with the client for a number of years. I had moved into that particular piece of work after being there for a few years. And then after about 6 months, as you said, I had the opportunity to run out, and I did, with the dust settling in the background. And took some time out, had a little bit of reflection, and then got back on the saddle and kept on going forward and servicing other clients and having quite a cool journey, actually.
Cool. So tell us about your agile journey or your ways of working.
So it's interesting because agility, I think agility is very much the mindset more than the tools, the techniques, the frameworks, but that is also dependent on who you're speaking to. So I didn't appreciate that actually I was starting to play with agility and with lean and thinking in an agile kind of way in around 2012, part of a separation program where it was being divested, and we had very tight deadlines. And if we didn't move across in a particular timeline, the client would be getting charged a lot of money every day. So it was that kind of environment. And there was also an ask of figuring out how to make OPEX savings during the delivery cycle, which at the time, many people were like, that's impossible. I mean, it's impossible. That doesn't exist, right? And
Do you just want to say what OPEC is for people that don't know?
Sure, it's your it's your operational costs.
Yep.
So you have a project cost, so how can you make savings, like real actual savings, whilst you're developing something new? So from there, I started to find savings in other program deliveries by avoiding risk, avoiding delays. And then I took on another program of work, large impact, waterfall, but using small A techniques. And from that, I was appointed into this role where I met you, and I was playing the role of a delivery lead / Scrum Master. It was quite a senior role, but I then realized that agility is a little more than a mindset and a bit of lean. I started to realize, there's this entire world, which is safe and less and Scrum and Kanban, and then agile coaches. And I was a little bit blown away. I was a little bit blown away and suffered massive imposter syndrome
But you had a practical implementation. You had done the work, but what you'd actually walked into was a bunch of theory and control mechanisms,
which I didn't know how to work in that space.
Yeah.
I had phenomenal success. I mean, I was appointed into the role. I was asked to join. And then I was under the impression that I would have been given the support to grow and learn about the techniques, knowing that I had all this other gifts to bring to the space, but that didn't happen. And I was quite surprised because in my particular team, I was working with a lot of senior, seasoned agile coaches, and I was a little overwhelmed. And when I exited, I did think to myself, what just happened? Is it me or is it them? But thankfully, within that space, I met someone very special. May I name his name?
Yeah, sure.
Martin Burns, the legend that is. He literally took me by the scruff of the neck and pulled me out of, I think, water where I was drowning, and basically said, it's not you. It's not you. Everything you're trying to do is absolutely right. You're not giving me the space. You're not receiving the space, and try something else somewhere else. It'll probably be
so I think it's worth saying that environment was more consultancy than coaching. And in a pure play consultancy world, it's you're successful by the number of knives you have in your back already, because actually you've made enough enemies. And I think that's in that particular contract engagement, that was the people who did well were the people who were used to blue chip consultancy, because it had been structured that way.
I'm glad you brought that up though, because I've had similar circumstances, similar situations where I've gone into a business and the change hasn't been wanted. They've brought you in for change, but actually they don't want the change and they push you back, or they put so many things in front of you that is actually making sure that you can't make those changes. And imposter syndrome does come out. You do start to think, am I good enough? Am I doing the right thing? Am I experienced enough? Am I worthy? It can come out quite easily when it isn't actually you. And I'm glad someone grabbed you and showed you it's not actually you, because that can actually really hurt someone, not just in their career, but actually advancing in their career. So I think one space we've got here is we're all agile coaches here, so we've all got very similar experiences and we've all had these ups and downs, and you do sometimes take on a client that isn't ready for it or thought they're ready for it.
So I just need to give some context. The actual issue wasn't the client. The actual issue was other agile coaches and agile delivery people, because of a sense of priority and ownership. And so it's very territorial.
And it's like that. I mean, I've recently been working with a set of agile coaches together as a team, and at the very beginning, we were great friends, we got on well with each other, but we struggled to deliver anything. And as agile coaches, it's ridiculous. We should be the best deliverers as possible. We actually worked out after a few months that actually we were doing something called sheepdogging each other. Because we were all agile coaches, what do we do for a living? We coach, we train, we advise, but we were coaching and training and advising each other. So we were going round and round in circles. And it wasn't until we kind of stepped back and we had a very deep retrospective, a deep personal retrospective with each other. And we kind of realized, well, actually, this is Sabrina's strong point, and this is his strong point, and and then we said, well, actually, let's learn from each other, but not constantly coach and train each other, and let someone on occasion take control, and we kind of are the deliverers, and then change it around. But it took us several months to realize it, and when we did that, we became an absolutely amazing team. But I think it happens quite a lot, in environments.
It's actually very common. So I am really actually grateful I went through that experience, because when you're successful, that's great, but actually you gain phenomenal learnings when something doesn't go well. And so from that experience, I had a great opportunity to learn what not to do. I also made a promise to myself that as a coach, I would do my best for somebody not to suffer imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome is a psychological experience of going through a change. And if I did a lot of study around what actually happens to the brain and how the brain has to practice something 70 times before they take it on as their own habit, and why I then understood why frameworks and tools are important, because it lets you practice this new behavior. But please do not forget that there is a new behavior, there's a new mindset, there's a new thinking, but you need to practice it, right? So from the experience, it was great. I also decided that from it to take a step down, because it was a new discipline. I was in old world, very much old world, coming into new world. And I said, it's new. Why don't I just take on team level? And what was great was I joined a phenomenal consulting company. I do want to name their name. Is it okay? Is it?
Yeah, sure.
Of course you can.
Publicis Sapient. I love them. Number one digital transformation house in the world. I am their number one fan. So I love them. Anyway, I joined. My boss at the time took a chance on me, and he said, I see something in you. Are you comfortable with training and with coaching? And I thought to myself, that's quite funny considering I came from a space where I felt like I was useless. So I said, well, why don't we start with me just Scrum Mastering the team? And then from there, let's see what happens. And then from that, 10 days into the job, I was able to help the team pull together a show and tell pack where they landed the message in front of 100 people, where I was facilitating, to the point that the program director was so impressed that he came over to have a chat with us and a chat with me. We then did the same thing. That was in the April, I would say 5 months later in the September, where I kind of got a little known for the work because it just blew everybody's brains away. It's not only were is a digital transformation, but not only were we doing digital, we're also showing how we can optimize flow using agile techniques and tools. And the business rep came to the show and tell and spoke and said, this is amazing. I had people in the business side telling me this is impossible, you can't do this. And now they're asking me for their help to push something into the backlog to get something done because they can't spin it up and resolve the issue fast enough. He was like, this is awesome. And the head of the program was just like, oh my God, that's outstanding. What I learned from their technique was the optimization of flow. So that's your lean. Through understanding your flow to identify your systemic issues. So that's your key areas of blockage or fat. You don't have to fix all your blockers in fact, just know them. So then you can prioritize them. So then you can start doing that least amount of work for highest impact that everyone talks about. And you have that control, you have that visibility. And to help you create that prioritization, know exactly what to go for, find that diamond in the rough, is to create ultimate alignment with a set of objectives, OKRs, meaningful measurements, like what Mike Burrows mentions, meaningful measurements. Don't just measure anything for the sake of measuring, but have it so it makes sense, which your business, your product owner can sign up to, whereby it's not being done to them, they're doing it themselves, and you're just coaching and guiding them to get to a point where they go, this is so awesome, thank you so much. Like,
so did you, with the teams, did they start to suggest metrics themselves?
The metrics, with one specific area, the metrics was created by the program. There were 23 unique metrics, and it was up to them. They decided which metrics they were going to work on.
Okay.
And so they had full autonomy as to, in our space, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Another one, A, B, C. So
OKRs are kind of based around an idea that at the top of the house, there are some things they need to find out. So though I can understand people creating them, but within the teams that deliver, aligning those to actual data can be quite difficult. And actually, did you encounter or create a challenge mechanism against the OKRs so that people could create new ones?
So in another space, we created ones that were meaningful for that space, but because they did a lot of thinking, these 23 KPIs that aligned nicely to the 4 OKRs, and the 4 OKRs were very open. They were actually aligned to an ideal. One was quality. Mm-hmm. The other one was speed. The other one was value, and the other one was people. So it's very open.
Yeah, right? So they're not like tightly defined OKRs based around notions of market or value. They're actually based around high level concepts of organizational constructs.
And because it was a digital transformation, it was all about how can you improve your quality, so reduce your number of defects. How can you speed up the flow by automating or improving your flow by how you work together, or people factor. Things are now working, things are now releasing. We were looking at building a pipeline, which they were working on, where they could release in governments safely 10 times a day. Mm-hmm. As an average, and this was in a large financial. So very, very impressive. From a digital perspective, I've never seen anything like it. And when it came to the applying agile methodology with a systematic mindset, which I got to learn when using digital tools, I got to create optimize, like, I'll give an example. Just using Agile method, Scrum, with a little bit of concept of pre-planning for a release, a certain amount of money. One feature team, they had for 7 changes from May to September, they had their cost allocated was 450K. They managed to do those 7 changes, exactly the 7 changes they needed, including resolving an FCA risk faster, resolving customer needs faster, fantastic. And they did it 25% less than budget, which allowed them to then go forward, because they then got even faster and better after working a while together, to release another 11 changes to the end of the year. That's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
And of course, when I took the team on a journey, and it started off project manager becoming a Scrum Master, business owner becoming a product owner, getting the team working together, challenging certain things that they learned from Scrum, but aligning it and going back to the basics of the Agile Manifesto, like, okay, in this flow, in this space, you can't release a product that can be consumed by a customer by the end of the sprint, but you can complete something. You can complete a step that allows you to then finish, and then, so that's okay.
Create an enabler that delivers a piece of functionality in a later sprint.
Exactly. Yeah. So this, when show and tells happen, it's not my story. I try to get the teams to tell their story. I've just helped facilitate it and bring that story together. The project manager said to everyone, when I was a project manager, I felt quite lonely. Everything was on my shoulders. Now as a Scrum Master, I feel like I have a team and the load is shared, and it's just so much more enjoyable. And that was just a gift. Yeah.
You know, that it's really great to hear that you come from a project manager background into a Scrum Master, because if you think, when it goes to mindsets, as a project manager, you're technically a dictator, not in a nasty way, but you are a dictator as a role as a project manager. But as a role as a Scrum Master, you're a facilitator. 2 complete opposite ends of the spectrum. And it is very rare that someone can actually transition from that dictatorship to a facilitationship. And it is rare. I get a lot of companies that say, we want to turn our project managers into Scrum Masters. And the first thing I say to them is, we need to work on the mindset first, because you can't have a project manager or a Scrum Master turning around and saying, just do this, and that's how you do it in this time. It's extremely, and I had that experience. I was originally leadership, and then I took redundancy, and I went and did my Scrum Master certification. And my trainer actually said to me, Sabrina, I don't think you'd be a very good Scrum Master. She said, because you haven't changed your mindset. You're still in that dictator mindset from being in leadership. You're still used to saying, just go away and do this, or can you just do this, or this is how it needs to be done, or this is what I wanted. Where really you need to speak to people in a different way of, getting them to understand what you want without you telling them what to do. And I took that personally as a challenge. When someone says I can't do something, I'm like, right,
I think that's interesting that you so I mean, I actually describe Scrum Masters as the butlers of the project.
Yeah.
Because you see the impact of them, but you don't see them, because I mean, I was a Scrum Master for 6 years before I actually did a certification in it. I was just interested in it, and it worked. And my job was to promote the team, each as a whole team, but each individually, to be the stars, to make them the stars, and to be recognized as the stars. And well, it's that kind of thing. It's going back years ago, I was involved in an engineering practice, and we were working in JIT, just-in-time production. Well, this is a long time ago, imported from Japan, which didn't really work very well. But my engineering team won an award, and we gave it to the production team because they did all the actual work. I mean, we put it together in a format where they could make it, but they did an amazing job making it. And so this was an international award that we won, and we gave it to another part of the organization, because actually it wouldn't have been possible to win it without them delivering. And that's my mindset around people that do the work, and this whole, we need to invert the pyramid. The 50 developers or the 5,000 developers are making the money to pay for everyone else that's in the building.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's something that I'm dealing with right now with my current client, which is very different. It's a challenging environment because the nature of it, and I can't mention where it is. It's just, it wouldn't be right. It is what it is, but it's also a phenomenal opportunity. And the team, it's about celebrating the team. I'm a great believer in celebrating. There's a balance of celebrating the team as well as the individual. So everybody wants to feel special, but then we all need to feel good together also. So like it's the balance of the love. I just want to finish touching upon that, the adjustment of moving from a Scrum Master to a project manager. I came up with this little cute, neat thing of the journey, because when I mentioned earlier on, it's you need to practice to allow your brain to make that adjustment in your mind. It's in the limbic brain. You have to practice it 70 times. So one of the ways I try to take people on a journey, so it's not like this massive impact, oh my God, imposter syndrome, is I map out what they're doing now. Okay, project manager, what do you do? Oh, you deal with risks and issues. Okay, so you do reporting. Okay. Right, Scrum Master, right. So you still need to be mindful of this, but you don't have, you're not actually meant to own it. You facilitate it. Okay, so somebody else own it, but you still do a lot of the same. So you don't have to forget everything you're doing. This, okay, you can actually share this load with the team. And when I do it like that, it actually says 50% of the stuff you're still did before will be useful in the new way. It's just more of understanding that instead of the flow, and this is another way I describe it, is the facilitator allows for that conversation. The product owner is I want, the team is the how, and the Scrum Master is actually the master of Scrum. You help set up a mechanism to allow for that flow to happen. You serve, but you lead. But be mindful, you are in a position you own that process. You can, if the process is not working and the team need help, to call out and say, okay, I'm going to step in, and as an advisor, as an expert in the space, I will help make that adjustment for you. Let's try it. If you are struggling, if you can't figure it out, that happens. And that happens when there's a lot of pressure to deliver, a lot of crunch time, and the system 1, system 2 brain doesn't work, right? It's right. So you help them a little bit, but then over time, as the mechanism starts to work and the pressure starts to flow down, then you then that creative thinking comes out, and then you step back and you start eating popcorn. It's wonderful.
So that is the dream of the Scrum Master, isn't it? That ultimately the team will self-serve the backlog after it becomes second nature to them, and what the Scrum Master does then is just finesse. But I've never seen it. Have you done it? Okay, well, I'm definitely hiring you.
I'm an accelerated. So when I'll give an example, because I'm always put into situations that are awkward. Very it's a burning platform. The environment hasn't been set up correctly. By the way, they just decided, this current client, to go safe. Did they do any of the foundational work to educate leadership or to
No.
That's why we do our job. We love it.
Yeah. Like when I first, no. But this is why the first few weeks I was like a deer in headlights and was struggling to breathe, is because the dates were set. So we're kind of retrofitting as well.
So I'm going to teach you the magic word. It's called adjusted governance.
I'm writing that down.
Adjusted governance is what you need. So the governance that organizations have is set in place to stop organizational and work-based change. And so people will actively work against everything you're doing, but be in the right. And there's more likelihood of you getting fired than them, because they have governance on their side. So you need to get adjusted governance and a partition of space where you can do these experiments to work out how it can work best. Otherwise, you're going to get major problems.
Well, I learned that lesson. I learned a lesson that if there isn't that buy-in from the senior leadership, so this was so where I am now is lovely. It's a great opportunity, lovely team, interesting work. I'm having fun knitting, right? I call it knitting right now, not carving, because carving is very transformational. This is more the start of the pre-transformation knitting trains. We're sitting there. A lot of fun. Before that, I was with a consulting company who I had a phenomenal experience as a contractor servicing a client. It was wonderful. Another beautiful. I learned also with Publicis Sapient the concept of exponential growth for pure acceleration, which not only supports the work, but also the influencing. And as you know, it's all about the influencing. So if you can imagine a train of 25 people, like this little small baby adoption, the entire area knew about us. The MD knew about us. Group Cloud knew about us. Head of architecture, head of digital, and it went all the way up to the CEO -2, hearing about the work. Now that's impressive influencing, just because a lot of people were starting to go, oh my God, this is amazing. Back to the original client, where I first had my first proper, true, full-on agile experience with the tools and frameworks, which was difficult and a little painful, positive too, because I met people like Karl and Martin, what have you, but not as successful as I would have wanted it to be, to then go back a few years later and have a fantastic journey, which was incredible. At that point, I was sponsored into the company, and it was great. I was so excited. I was so honored. But the CEO chose not to meet with me. And I was surprised, because I thought, but you've signed off my contract. You're actually paying me a lot of money to do this role. And okay. At the time I was naive, and I thought, it's okay, I'll show to him. I was an experiment. Okay. I was sponsored by key leaders in the business, but he just wanted to see, he wasn't quite sure, so and then COVID hit. And then I raised a wrist against my own goal and said, you're going to have to fire me if I can't build business, because I'm expensive and duty of care to my client. I'm still very responsible. So it took a few months, and they said, okay, we're going to leave with an open door. They called me back a month and a half later and said, we would like to have you back. Slightly different, just because business-wide, but still coaching, actually coaching in-house, impactful. And I said, can I meet with the CEO now? Well, he signed off the contract, but no, and I said, actually the words were, he's part of the problem. And I said, I can't, because my role, I'm not coaches. And this is a learning from industry. Coaches are not actually meant to drive the change from a transformational perspective. It's meant to be leadership. Culture starts with leadership. And so doesn't matter how good a coach I am, if I'm not 100% aligned with the ultimate leader of the area or what have you, then the minute that leader steps into the room and says something that isn't aligned to what I am doing, and even if I'm coaching one person or an area or what have you, who's going to be at risk? I am. And what's even worse is the area is going to get confused, and then that confusion is going to create that negative feeling, and then all the good work is going to go, down the drain. And so the heart starts to break. So I actually consciously chose during a pandemic not to go back to work, which I still go. I must have been crazy.
But it's the right thing to do. I mean, in the project that we met on, I raised a level 1 risk against the program that we were working on, because and I, at that point, I had 1.4 million in spend available after doing weighted shortest job first, for the work still needed to be done. But it had so many complex dependencies, I didn't think it could be done. And I also didn't have any confidence in the other work that needs to be done either, that it would deliver the outcomes. So I raised a level 1 risk, and then the risk was accepted. And they decided that they would run with that risk, and that's a common thing with risks. Is if you don't respond to those risks, that's when you get a visit from the regulators. So that they managed the risk and just accepted that they would get what they would get from it. But I left within about 4 weeks of after that, because it was clear that there was no desire to pivot and to focus on actually delivering value. And I don't exist on this earth just to ream money from clients. I exist to deliver value to stakeholders and to investors and to the markets, because these are people's pensions, these are people's futures.
Yeah.
So it's a very strange situation. I could have stayed there for another year, but I couldn't stay in conscience.
Yeah, your soul. Like, so what I learned also, and this is what I had mentioned before we started the interview, is that, I love and believe in agility on a very deep philosophical level. I remember once I finally fully understood the Agile Manifesto, because it's such real. I don't even know if the guys who signed it off and created it really understood how deep and meaningful it really is. Because you could do an entire degree on it, and it's so powerful. I brought agility home. I brought it home. I run my own Kanban now. It helped improve my relationships with my partner, with my family, with myself. I started to stop stressing if something wasn't done. I would start saying, oh, if it's one thing to do, just do one thing. I started to get things done better, to the point that, as I said, I did project wedding via Kanban at the Balmoral Hotel, which is a 5-star rated, amazing hotel in Edinburgh. And the next day they told me that it was the best planned wedding that they've ever experienced. And that if I ever wanted a job,
and what? That sounds really funny, actually, you say that, because one, we said this before when we were off camera, and I said you had to bring this on camera. One, I did the same. I Kanban'd my wedding. I'm a full believer in personal agility. And I've even trained my mother that has never worked in any sort of IT industry or anything like that. She's actually, run my father's company for years before she retired. And I even taught her the process on how it takes away stress. I find there's moments when I'm stressed, or my husband's stressed with his business. And the first thing I always say to him is, right, let's write on Post-it notes one by one what needs to be done. Right, let's prioritize those Post-it notes one by one. Just taking it out of your brain and even simplistically writing it onto that Post-it note actually relieves stress. And I remember coaching my bridesmaids what Kanban was and trying to convince them, I am not being bridezilla by asking you to move a Post-it note. I swear to you, it worked. Because luckily in my situation, I wasn't bridezilla. My husband was actually groomzilla. But yeah, he was groomzilla, and he knows. I tell everyone this. He was groomzilla. And yeah, it works. It works in everything. I've Kanban'd my friends.
Did you have a little girl with Post-it notes at the ceremony?
I love it.
Oh, I should have. I actually heard a friend of mine who was a contractor actually somehow charged his whole wedding to his company by actually putting boards around his wedding with his company name, and he made out it was a conference/wedding and charged it back to his own company. I'm like,
yeah, I think maybe HMRC might have a view on all of that. I'm not sure that grassing him up live online is quite our role.
Nobody knows who he is. I've not said any names. You know who he is, and it was not me who did it. But yeah, I should have. I did have Post-it notes while I was getting ready with my wedding dress. So I did kind of Post-it note and getting my hair done. This is what I'm doing it that way, and I was moving them. Yeah, now I wonder why I was given Post-it notes as a gift.
Don't bother with a toaster. Just give us some Post-it notes and a
good gift.
Okay, so this is a question for
Sharpie.
Both. Do you find that at Christmas you will receive Sharpies and Post-it notes? Because I get them constantly. I love it. Best gift ever.
No, I have cats, and my friends, and they're not allowed to buy me anything really cat related, because I refuse to wear like a top saying crazy cat lady but they tend to get me things that have something with cats on it, like socks. So they know so I said, like, I like woolly cashmere. So guess what? I got really nice socks with cats on it. And so they do things like that. So no, they don't do the Post-its and the Sharpies, because I just have tons of it. So they're like, why buy that? But I do enjoy getting gifts from other Agile friends, like the planning poker, other cards, other gifts, books. Oh, I love it. I'm like, bring it on. So I'm always open to receiving a gift. Yeah.
I've got a similar problem. My husband has banned anything Dachshund related because I have 2 little mini Dachshunds. So I'm not allowed to buy anything Dachshund related, but I am allowed to receive it.
Well, there's a hint if ever I heard one.
Yes, so I am allowed to receive Dachshund related memorabilia, but I'm not allowed to.
And we'll be placing her address just below to send all of your Dachshund related toys.
Please send me a puppy, because I want another one. That's another discussion I'm having with my husband, that I'd like another one.
Dear. I'm getting the feeling before this turns into a list of things that Sabrina wants free through the post, that maybe we've come to an end. Thank you so much, Evelyn. That was just brilliant, really, really interesting. And we'd love to have you back again as well, because it's depth of knowledge with application. It's not just theory with you. It's not theory with us either, but it's to have that discourse around what we learnt, not just from what we got from the books. So thank you so much. That was brilliant.
My greatest pleasure. And thank you for inviting me along. I really enjoyed it. It was super.
Oh, no, thank you ever so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
It's the culture that you can't touch. It's not the person. You have to make a decision. Do you want to stay in a toxic culture or not? And my choice is absolutely not.